Leslee Udwin, filmmaker and human rights activist.
There are some life journeys in which the darkness in the tunnel we pass through is so dense, so blinding, that the light we're bathed with when we come through it and emerge at the other end is overpowering in its luminous clarity. And so it was for me on a 2-year journey I undertook while making a documentary called India's Daughter, about a brilliant 23-year-old medical student who was brutally gang raped and murdered, her beautiful, promising life cut off. India's Daughter laid bare the root cause of the global pandemic of violence against women and girls with such searing definition that in fact the solution just presented itself with equal clarity. I interviewed 7 rapists over 31 hours, and one of them had raped a 5-year-old girl. And he explained to me very clearly what he felt gave him the entitlement to do this. Without even a hint of remorse, he said to me, word for word, "She was a beggar girl. Her life was of no value." Her gender, her caste, allowed him to take her from both sides, as he casually told me he had done, and toss her aside a little bundle of simpering, bloodied rags. All violations of human rights, be they gender-based, or based on racial or religious differences, or sexual preferences, or economic or class disparities, or just nationalist fervour, all these violations have the following in common: a conditioned, discriminatory mindset, a lack of empathy, and the ascribing of lesser or no value to the other. And there's not one corner of this globe that is immune to this pandemic, this disease. And how are we responding? Actually, what are we doing as a world? We are dealing with the fallout. Where are the prevention and intervention programs? And where are they, particularly at the crucial stages? In the early years, these children are forming their thinking, their attitudes, their behaviors, and their character. In fact, particularly where are they? Between the ages of 3 and 5, when neuroscientists tell us that the brain is at its maximum neuroplasticity, is optimally cognitively modifiable. Where are the educators teaching them that each and every one of us is of equal value? Now, we sit in our armchairs with complacency, with piety, with dismay, shaking our heads and saying, but it's for the parents to do that. That's the parents' job. But the parents, as we well know, are for the most part pitifully incapable of doing so, because the parents themselves have not been taught. And so the cycle goes on. The only way to change mindset is education. Education is the primary engine of progress. And when I say education, I don't mean access to education. I mean contents of education. When we consider how absolutely irresponsibly we have neglected the holistic education of our children, we should hang our heads in shame. We teach them numeracy and literacy and to become efficient cogs in the machine of a labor market. How have we not thought, when we've designed the education systems that are to nurture and prepare our children for the rest of their lives, that they need to be taught experientially and with practice in a subject of itself, with as much respect as mathematics? Empathy and critical thinking and gender sensitization and the breaking down of stereotypes. Conflict resolution, emotional intelligence. In short, social and emotional values, which are the very cornerstone of human rights, peace, and prosperity. Well, in truth, we have recognized that. We have been talking about it for decades, in this great chamber and beyond. We have spelt it out eloquently in Article 29 of the Convention on the Rights of the Child. Every single member state of the UN has committed itself to the 2004 World Programme of Human Rights Education, has committed itself to these glorious goals. We have commissioned much research and written many reports and gathered statistics and metrics. What we haven't done yet is to take systemic, comprehensive, assured, and mandatory steps towards it. In fact, 2,400 years ago, Aristotle said, education of the head without education of the heart is no education at all. Nelson Mandela said, no child is born hating. A child has to be taught to hate, and if he can be taught to hate, then he can be taught to love. The initiative I have founded is called Think Equal, and it addresses 9 of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And we are on course to create a new generation of global citizens by 2030 who can rise to the challenges, the real challenges, the humanistic challenges of the 21st century. I'm honored to be advising the UN Office of the Commissioner for Human Rights on this. It's an unprecedented initiative which calls for a system change in education to bring that missing new subject onto the compulsory curricula of world schools. And in just a year, we've gathered together thought leaders, experts, visionaries onto an advisory committee. We now have our first 160 lesson plans for 3-year-olds. And we have 56 schools across 17 countries starting to pilot the Think Equal global curriculum in January. So in closing, Think Equal has taken its first assured steps into the light at the end of this tunnel. And I implore each and every one of you, please support us. Help us to advocate, to persuade and inspire education ministers, heads of state, teachers, parents around the world to adopt the Think Equal curriculum for a free, safe, and equal world. Thank you.